Sunday morning stretch. Let's begin with palms forward and a great big shoulder shrug. Inhaling up. Exhale back. Head down. Repeat. Great big shoulder shrug. Great big yawn. Inhaling up. Exhale back and down. One more time. Great big shoulder shrug. Great big yawn. Inhaling up. Exhale back and down. And then take your arms out in front of you. You're going to interlace your fingers. Press your palms away. And as you do so, pull your belly, your ribs in. And then shift side to side. Trying to spread that space in between your shoulder blades. Pressing your knuckles forward as you pull your belly backward. So keep this fullness in your back. Your front ribs pulled into your back ribs as you come upright and flip your palms up towards the ceiling. So there's a tendency to go to the opposite. So keep those front ribs pulled into your back ribs as you press your palms up towards the ceiling. Pressing your thumbs up, pulling your pinky fingers back, putting your head on straight. Front ribs pulled into back ribs. And then release hands to your rib cage. So finding those ribs. And think of the light shade, old-fashioned light shade, lampshade. You're going to tilt that lampshade forward to shine your light forward. And then tilt the lampshade down, pulling in your front ribs, pulling in your belly. Again, tilt your lampshade forward, shine, and then straight down. Two more just like that. Trying to isolate those ribs a little bit. So separating the ribs from your hips, we're going to exaggerate this a little bit more. And release. Now bring your hands to the tops of your shoulders. Bring your elbows together. And then separate. Again, bring your elbows together. And then pull back. Same thing. Try to get those ribs to tilt. So now I've got my lampshade shining down and then lampshade tilted forward. Lampshade down, lampshade forward. So if you have more arms, you can imagine that extra set of hands on those ribs, getting those ribs to tilt forward and then down. We're going to exaggerate this a little bit more. Take your elbows out to the sides, take your hands like goalposts, and then bring your entire forearm, pinky fingers to elbows together and separate. And now put your back into it. A little bit more arch one way and then the other. Big inhale and exhale. Again, inhale and exhale. Two more just like that. And then open. Bring your hands behind your back, clasp your hands together, do a shoulder shrug up, back, and down. Skid your thumbs down your tailbone. And as you begin to pull your elbows away from your back, can you tilt your lampshade straight down? Tuck in those front ribs. Pull those elbows away from your back any amount at all. Knees are unlocked, heads on level and straight. Lifting elbows away from your back without letting your ribs shine forward. Keep them shining down. And breathe. Knees are unlocked. Big chesty breaths. So you have to find breath in the upper portions of your chest, not down low, because you want to keep those front ribs tucked in. So breathing into the upper portions of your chest. Feeling that spread across your collarbones. And then inhale one more time. And exhale, release, letting those ribs, those arms swing. Letting those arms cross in front. Getting those elbows to cross in front. You're going to take that right arm, drape it across. Pull it all the way across a little bit more. And now you're tucking in those front ribs and leaning into those back ribs a little bit. Front ribs and pulled in, back ribs flaring. In fact, I'm going to encourage you to breathe into that back bra band. Try to get your shirt to split open in the back. And release. Let's do the other side. Draping that Left arm across, pull it all the way across. Shoulders are down away from your ears, and focus your attention and breath in those back ribs. Front ribs are tucked in, back ribs are flaring. Another nice deep breath here. And release. So we're getting a tour of the rib cage. You're going to bring your hands onto your hips and lift that rib cage up. So with your next inhale, lift your entire rib cage straight up. And then as you exhale, drop it. Again, great big inhale, lift it up. And drop it. So when you're lifting your rib cage, you're lifting the back and the front ribs equally. Inhaling, lifting up. And exhale, drop. Straight down. Again, inhale, straight up. Those front ribs are still tucked in the entire time. You're really breathing into the back ribs to get that lift. And then when you exhale, you drop. One more time, just like that. And drop. Now here's the challenge, to have that same sort of movement and lift in your chest, but not the breath. So we'll prepare with a big inhale. Exhale all the breath out. Now keep the breath out as you lift your ribs up. Relax your belly and then inhale. So the secret to this one is to relax your belly before you take that inhale. Otherwise, you will get a bit of a rib cramp. Let's do that again. Big inhale to prepare. Exhale all the breath out. Keep the breath out. Close your throat. Don't let any breath in. And then lift your ribs up. And then when you need to inhale, you relax your belly first. And then inhale. Let the ribs drop. Two more just like that. Inhale, prepare. Exhale all the breath out. Close your throat. Don't let any breath in. Lift those ribs up. When you need to inhale, relax that tummy and then inhale. Good. Last time. And maybe when you lift up, you wiggle around a little bit. Hard to do and talk at the same time. So inhale, prepare. Exhale all the breath out. Don't let any breath in, but lift your ribs up. Maybe shift a little side to side. Again, when you need to inhale, relax that tummy first and then inhale. And release. Great big inhale, both arms all the way up. And let it go. We're going to continue breathing and stretching, opening up the chest a little bit more, inhaling up. And exhale. I'm going to turn my back to you so we're all going the same direction. You're going to inhale, take both arms up. And down. Right leg crosses behind. Right arm reaches up towards the sky as you come over into a side stretch. So just as before, keep those front ribs pulled in. You want to feel that expansion in the back ribs, even here in this side stretch. You're staying skinny for the side stretch. And inhale, come on up. And exhale, release. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So cross that left leg behind, reach for the sky with the left arm, and tip over into a side stretch. Again, in this side stretch, you're keeping those front ribs pulled in. You're breathing into your back ribs. Feeling skinny as you do this one. And release. Adding on. I'm going sideways. You're fine oriented, however it works for you. Right leg crosses behind. So your right leg. Right arm up. Your right arm. Front ribs are pulled in, breathing into those back ribs, coming over into that side stretch, and then reaching diagonal forward. The left-hand corner of the room. Front ribs and belly are still pulled in. Still breathing here. Just getting a little deeper underneath into those back ribs, into that lower back. And then finally, with an inhale, come all the way on up. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Left leg crosses behind. Left arm shoots up and over. Again, front ribs and belly pulled in. And then reaching diagonal forward. Real gut punch here. Pull that tummy in tight. Find space for your breath in your back ribs. And then with an inhale, come all the way on up. Beautiful. Inhale, both arms all the way up. And with knees bent, swan dive down into a forward fold. Arms dangle as you inhale, come halfway up. And exhale, release. Keeping those knees bent. Inhale, come halfway up. Breathe into those back ribs to float you halfway up. And exhale, melt down. A couple more just like this. Inhale, breathing into those back ribs. And exhale, melting. Knees are bent the entire time. Arms are dangling. One more time. Inhaling, coming up. Halfway. Knees bend generously. And you're going to place your hands on your lap. Notice I've taken my feet wide apart of my mat. I'm going to turn sideways because you love this lovely profile view. We're going to do some cat and cow. Inhale, head up, tail up, so your front ribs can spill forward. And then as you exhale, pull in your front ribs, pull in your belly, arch your back for that cat. Inhale, out. And exhale, cat. And work it out. Now, the next time you exhale into that cat-like position, knees are still bent, arms are still straight, hands on your lap. You're going to locate that right arm, and with an inhale, sweep that right arm up and open. Follow it with your gaze. And exhale. Release. Same side, same arm. Knees are still bent, knees are still wide. Inhale, lift up. And exhale, release. Third time on this side. Inhale, up, up, up. And release. Let's do the other side. Inhale, left arm up. And release. The sun came out this morning. Just for yoga class. Inhale, open. And release. One more time. Big inhale all the way up. And release. All right, we're going to make our way all the way down to the ground and into a downward facing dog. So do make sure both hands and both feet are on the same yoga mat, whichever one that is for you. And step back into your downward facing dog. And as you come into this downward facing dog, have an awareness of your rib cage. Those front ribs are tucked in and those back ribs are flaring. You're breathing into those back ribs. There's a spaciousness, a fullness in the back of your t-shirt. Take your feet as wide apart as your yoga mat. Bend one knee, then the other. And jog your hips and your ribs, for that matter, side to side. So starting to get even more stretch in that side body as you wiggle and waggle and pull those hips out of your armpits. And of course, do keep breathing. Front ribs are pulled in the entire time. Skinny dog with the perky butt. And then let's come on down. You might consider a pillow for padding underneath your knees. I am. Make sure I'm all in frame here. Padding underneath your knees as you come on down to hands and knees. And we're going to do a thread needle, a little twist. So start with hands and knees. Inhale, head up, tail up into that sway back cow. And as you exhale, come into cat. Be a Halloween cat. Come up onto your claws. Come up onto your fingertips. Front ribs and belly pulled in, a skinny Halloween cow. If you need to breathe, you breathe into those back ribs. Get your bones to spread apart a little bit more. Locating that right hand, with an inhale, sweep that right arm open. Follow it with your gaze. We did this a few minutes ago. And exhale, release. Same side, same arm. Inhale, sweep up and open. And exhale. Once again, big inhale, sweep up and open. And this time, thread that right arm through, putting your right shoulder blade on the floor, the back of your head on the ground. Chin is tucked into your armpit. Top shoulder shrugs off your face so that you can breathe. Top hand can be a kickstand or wrap around your hips, around your lower back, whatever works for you. Breathing underneath that right shoulder blade. Now your hips can shift a little bit from side to side. Shift your weight from one knee to the other. Waggle your hips around and see what that does for you. Hip wiggling and waggling. I like to have that kickstand, that top hand acting like a kickstand to help me control it a little bit more. But you do whatever works best for you. And I've left you there long enough that you have to breathe at least once or twice. So I encourage you, I dare you to breathe into those back ribs. And then finally come to neutral and come on it. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So inhale into that sway back cow. Exhale into cat. Again, pop up onto your fingertips. Get up on your claws. Locating that left arm with an inhale, sweep that left arm up and open. Follow it with your gaze. And exhale, release. Same thing. Inhale, up, up, and away. And release. And third time. Inhale, open sesame. Big inhale. And then threading that arm through. Shoulder blade comes onto the ground. Back of your head. Right where that ponytail is at the base of your skull, that part's on the floor. Chin is tucked towards that top armpit. Bottom ear swings towards bottom shoulder, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, that's so fine. Just keep breathing. Top shoulder shrugs off your face. Top hand can be a kickstand. Breathing into those back ribs. And you might consider shifting your weight from one knee to the other, letting your hips wiggle around a little bit. Again, when I'm shifting weight and wiggling, I like to use the top hand as a kickstand. Ultimately, the challenge is to breathe. Breathe into those back ribs. And then release. Inhale back to center. We're going to come back into that downward facing dog. So you might want to tuck in your shirt. Get ready. Toes curl under. Belly lifts up into your body as you step back into that downward facing dog. Coming into that downward facing dog, you're going to rise up onto tippy toes. And as you do so, breathe into your back ribs. Keep those back ribs buoyant. So as you inhale, rise to tippy toes. Shift your body weight forward. Come to the top of that push-up. Front ribs are tucked in. Back ribs are flaring. And then back into downward facing dog. We're going to repeat. So inhale here, prepare. Exhale all the breath out. And then as you inhale, you're breathing, you're not holding your breath. As you inhale, you're going to lift those ribs, shift forward, fullness in that back body as you shift that plank pose. And back to downward facing dog. Third time's charm. Inhale, prepare. Exhale, pull in that tummy. With an inhale, lift your ribs out of your hips, shifting forward, coming to the top of that push-up. A fullness in the back body. And then you get to set your knees down. And back it up into child's pose. Still with that puffiness in those back ribs, pushing your hands into the ground to back your hips up to your heels. Feel that stretch in your lower back. So you're really rounding, curling up tight into a ball. This is not about putting your face on the floor. It's about putting your hips onto your heels and pushing into those back ribs. Front ribs are tucked in, back ribs are flaring. This is your child's pose. Big toes are together. Knees go wide. Big toes together, knees wide. Maybe even as wide apart as the mat. Hands out in front of you on your fingertips. Let's see if my fingers on. There we go. Let me back up so you can see my fingers. Fingertips, like those claws that you had earlier. Claws. And then walk both hands all the way over to the right side. Really opening up the left side of your body. Breathing into those back ribs. Maybe starting to feel like you're floating a little bit. Poofing out when you inhale and then sinking down a bit when you exhale. And then walk both hands all the way over to the other side. Again, you're up on fingertips and you're side stretching and you're breathing deeply. As you inhale, fill up those back ribs. And as you exhale, you sink. And after a while, you kind of feel that movement with each and every breath. The movement originating from inside, from the breath. If you've been doing yoga for any length of time, you've been told to move with your breath so many times that you start tuning that instruction out. I'm trying to encourage you to breathe, move with an awareness of your breath, of your ribs, of where the breath is going in your ribs for today's class. And then eventually come back to neutral. So, this idea of breathing into your side and back ribs. We're going to continue with that idea as we once again resume that downward facing dog. Bottoms up, everybody, downward facing dog. Bending one knee and then the other, dancing and prancing in place. But can you synchronize breath with movement? When you inhale, can you breathe into the back side body on one side? Then as you exhale, transition and get ready to breathe on the other side. And then as you exhale, transition, get ready to breathe on the other side. Breathing into those back side ribs, pressing one heel down, then the other. Moving slowly, breathing slowly. So if you're following along, I am inhaling and then exhaling and then inhaling and exhaling. Inhaling, stretching, and exhaling, transition to the other side. And inhale, stretching, and exhale, transition. If none of this is making sense, just keep breathing. You're fine. Just stretch and move. Whatever you're doing, even it out. And then come back to neutral. Walk your hands back to your feet, finding yourself in that forward fold. Do let your feet go as wide apart as your mat. Feet nice and wide. Knees are bent, and you can wrap your fingers around your elbows. And shift and sway side to side. Now, if your lower back does not like this can definitely be modified. You can put your hands on blocks to give your lower back a little bit more support as you swish and sway side to side. Let your pelvis roll across the top of your thigh bones. Again, if it works for you, you can hold on to elbows, let your hair, your elbows sweep the floor as you shift and sway side to side. And then, if you want to be a little bit more sophisticated with this, breathe. Breathe into those back ribs. Breathe into your hips. The idea here is that your pelvis can roll across the top of your thigh bones. You can shift your hips in space, and you can breathe while you're doing all of that. We're going to come to neutral. If you haven't already, find blocks, put those blocks underneath your hands because you're going to step your feet nice and wide. You make sure both feet are on the same yoga mat. Feet go nice and wide. Toes turn in, heels kick out. You're going to melt down into a nice deep forward fold. Hands are touching something. Maybe your arms are long enough that you can put your elbows down on blocks, or maybe elbows come all the way to the floor. Coming into this nice deep forward fold. Toes turn in, heels kicking out. Knees are unlocked. Cross Rita Padottanasana, wide-legged forward fold. Giving a good strong stretch on the back of your legs. Now, blocks are underneath your hands. It takes blocks out in front of you on that high level and push those blocks out in front of you as far as they're willing to go, but keep your hips parked back over your heels. So advance those blocks as far forward as they're going to go this morning, and then tip the leading edge of the blocks away and breathe into your back ribs. It says, is that all pinchy in the shoulders? You can give me 2 thumbs up. Hitchhike your thumbs out to the sides as much as possible. Maybe balance your pinky fingers on the tops of your blocks. It will help take some of the pinch out of your shoulders. Also, the more you breathe into those back and side ribs, the less you will collapse into your shoulder joint, and the more comfortable that will be for your shoulders. I'm going to leave you here long enough that you have to breathe and get comfortable with it. I'm going to turn sideways, because as you breathe and get comfortable with this, as you tip the leading edges of the blocks away, as you give me 2 thumbs up, as you breathe into those back ribs, I do want your hips back over your heels. Keep weight in your heels. Maybe pick up and wiggle your pinky toes for fun. Continue to breathe. So over time, this pose will begin to evolve. And you might feel your weight shifting around a little bit. And then soften your knees. They should be soft the whole time, but keep those knees unlocked. Bring those blocks back underneath your shoulders and come to a tabletop-like position. Hands straight down underneath your shoulders. You're doing a really high level, elevated, using blocks. I know you can do this with your hands on the floor, but we're not doing the hands on the floor. We're doing a variation. Hands on blocks, knees unlocked. Right hand on a block directly underneath your nose. Front ribs and belly pulled in. Back ribs are buoyant and floating. Front ribs pulled in. Back ribs are spread out. And then with an inhale, sweep that left arm up and open. Big revolution. Big open twist. Good. Take that top hand, back of your hand around the small of your back. Feel that there's a fullness in those back ribs. Fingertips can tuck into your waistband. Your lower back is long. Big twist. Now, where's your head? Your head is an extension of your spine. So put your head on in line with your spine. Continue that twist. Breathing against your arm. Breathing into your back ribs. And on 1, let's do the other side. Inhale, sweep up and open. Big rotation. Back of your hand around the small of your back. You could feel those back ribs. Belly pulled into your body. Again, do make sure your head is in line with your spine. It's not falling off. Big twist. And release. All right. Hands on your lap. So bend your knees, transfer your hands up onto your lap, and let's come all the way on up to standing. I'm going to turn and face the screen. I recommend you do the same. Feet are going to go wide, 1 foot either end of your mat. All of that stuff was warm up, was stretching, preparation for what's happening next. Feet are nice and wide, ankles underneath wrists. Turn all 10 toes to the right. Inhale, take both arms up and overhead. You can hook your thumbs together. And stretch. Notice that tendency for the front ribs to flare. So tuck in those front ribs. Find some breath, in your back body. Keep your eyes open. Find some breath in your back body. And as you breathe into your back body, you'll feel your weight shift back. Bit of a challenge there for some of us this morning. And keep that balance, weight in the back body. And separate your arms. Inhale, prepare. And then as you exhale, tip on over into that triangle pose. Bottom hand can find a brick or your shin, whatever works for you. Top hand in the air, high-fiving an imaginary friend. And I do recommend keeping your eyes open. But if you are able to close your eyes this morning, really bring your attention into those back ribs. Breathe into the back ribs. I do recommend a hand on a block. It's easier to balance if you've got three points of connection with the floor. And that block can either be inside or outside the foot, whatever works best for your balance. High-fiving an imaginary friend also helps with balance. Turning your attention inward, breathing into those back ribs. And then with an inhale, come all the way on up. And let's switch sides. Turn all 10 toes to the left. Again, you want a nice wide stride between your feet. And take your arms up and overhead. Hook your thumbs together. Breathe into that back body. Keep your knees unlocked. Separate your arms level with your shoulders. And then tip on over. Coming into that triangle pose. And don't be shy about using that block. Top hand is high-fiving that imaginary friend. And imagine you were a multi-armed god or goddess. You had some extra arms. Imagine an extra arm around the small of your back, feeling those back ribs puff, feeling that front rib belly pull in, long lower back. Deep breaths. If it works for you to close your eyes, by all means, go for it. I think I'd fall over if I closed my eyes. But do bring your attention, your focus to those back ribs. That will tend to shift your balance back. So keep breathing. Both knees are unlocked. High-fiving that imaginary friend for extra support. Notice feeling this pose evolve with each and every breath. And then with an inhale, come all the way on. All right, turn your toes in, all 10 toes pointing in towards midline, knees unlocked, hinging over. On the way down, I'm pushing my inner thighs back, letting my head drop down. Hands are touching the floor or blocks, whatever you need there. Hands are touching something as you melt into this forward fold. Toes are turned to heels are kicking out. Now imagine, activate as if you were picking your heels up off the floor. They're not going anywhere. Imagine you were picking your feet up off the floor. Imagine you were shortening your legs, pulling on really tight stockings, pulling up into your pelvis. I know that's weird. Shorten your legs as you stand on them. And as you shorten your legs, as you pull up on your legs, stick out your butt. It's like you're pulling those leg bones up into your pelvis and then letting them stick out of your butt. And then soften. Heel toe, wiggle your feet narrow, closer together. Make a lap, bend your knees and transfer your hands up onto your lap. We just did a big lower back and leg and hip stretch. So you want to slowly come up out of this one. You don't want to crank on those hamstring muscles. Take a moment to shake out a little bit. Wiggle. And another standing pose in mind for you. We're going to go for a pyramid pose. Another big hamstring thing. You're going to need your blocks. Blocks parked at the front edge of your mat. I'm going to go sideways just so you can see the profile view. Blocks at the very front edge of your mat. You're standing at the front edge of your mat, and then you take a giant step back with that right foot. Big step. Hands on blocks, come back underneath your shoulders. Back foot can hop a little bit wider, or front foot can wiggle to the side. Front foot can even turn out to the side a little bit. Hands are straight down underneath your shoulders on those blocks. You're going to press that back heel straight back. You are cheating yourself if you just flop it in and down. Take that back heel, swing the inner back heel wide out to the side, like you're dumping pocket change out of your right hip pocket. The stripe on the outside of your back leg, the stripe on the outside of your right leg is rolling down towards the floor. Your inner thighs, the inseam, are flaring up towards the ceiling, as if you were shining your inseams towards the ceiling. Hands on blocks for balance. Both knees are unlocked. You're working on sticking out your butt. Big. And with hands on blocks straight down underneath your shoulders, you can even push into those blocks a little bit. And now here's the funky thing. Take that front leg. It's going to go nowhere, but engage like you are shortening the front leg, like you're pulling that front leg up into your pelvis. Hands on blocks. If you got good, strong blocks and you trust them, you might even consider floating that front foot, that front leg up off the ground. I got cheap blocks. I'm not going to do it. But if you had solid blocks underneath your hands, you might consider lifting that leg up and pulling it into your pelvis. How strong do you feel this morning? And as you pull that leg up into your pelvis, continue to stick out your butt. Can you do all of that and still breathe? Oh yeah, breathing. Breathing into those back ribs. Breathing into those back ribs gives you a little bit more strength in your arms. A little fullness in the back ribs can help you push down into your blocks and float that front leg up a little bit more. And then soften and step forward. And come on up. You might roll out your wrists a little bit. So when we're doing this, we're tucking in those front ribs, we're breathing into the back body, and we're getting strong through the arms. Let's do the other side. Hands on blocks, giant step back with your left foot. Back foot can wiggle wide, front foot can wiggle wide, front foot can even turn out to the side a little bit. Blocks are straight down underneath your shoulders. Take that back heel, swing it wide out to the side. You're dumping the pocket change out of that hip pocket. You're looking down at that front foot, admiring your pedicure. Hands on blocks straight down underneath your shoulders. And as you breathe into those back ribs, get strong. Feel as if you can lift that front leg off the ground. Pull that front leg up into your pelvis. Power. Lift it up. Shorten it. Sticking out your butt. Trust your blocks, maybe? I don't trust mine, but work on it. And keep breathing. And soften. Once again, step forward. Come all the way on up and roll out those wrists. Notice what's going on in your hips and lower back. Perhaps you're starting to feel kind of strong in the upper body. Perhaps you're ready to do both legs at the same time. But first, let's roll out these wrists. If I was really pushing hard on my blocks, my wrists need a little bit of a break. So you're going to really flare your fingers. And your challenge is to touch your fingertips to your elbows. As you roll those wrists, touch fingertips to elbows. Just need longer fingertips. And then go the other way. Rolling, rolling, rolling. Here we go. We're going to be making our way down to the ground. Big inhale, both arms come all the way on up. Bend your knees, swan dive down into a forward fold. Inhale, come halfway up. Puffy back ribs. And release. Stepping back into your downward facing dog. Rise up onto tippy toes, breathing into your back ribs. Shift your body weight forward. Come to the top of that push-up, top of that plank. And set your knees down. Untuck your toes. Hips go back over your heels. Walking your hands back towards your lap. Let's do another little wrist stretch. You can put the backs of your hands down on the ground as you watch the demo. So just go for a little bit of a wrist stretch, and you might shift your weight side to side here, stretching out those wrists real good. Because in just a moment, you will be here. In just a moment, I'm going to ask you to exhale, pull in those front ribs and take one leg behind. I'll talk you through all of this, don't you worry. And then the challenge will be to shift your chest forward, let those elbows squeeze your ribs as you lower down. And then push right back up. The secret to this one is to have puffy back ribs. Don't let your guts fall out. Keep a puffiness in your back ribs, and you won't feel so heavy. So I'll talk you through that. So come on up, roll out those wrists. It's starting to rain again. And let's do it. This is a modified chaturanga. We've got all the parts already. You're going to come to hands and knees. You're taking our time. Inhale, head up, tail up, sway back, cow. This is what we do not want our body to be doing. Exhale, come into that cat pose. This is what we want. Those front ribs pulled in, that fullness in the back body. Even as you stretch that right leg straight behind you, push back through that right heel. Take that right heel, swing it out wide to the side. You're dumping the pocket change out of that right hip pocket. Front ribs and belly are pulled in. Now you're going to shift your body forward, like you're shortening that straight leg. You're pulling that straight leg into your pelvis. So yeah, the leg is lifting away from the floor, but you're also pulling it into your pelvis as it comes away from the ground. It is short. It is plugged in. Front ribs and belly are pulled in. Elbows swing in narrow. Maybe you dial your hands out in the direction of your pinky fingers a little bit. The straight leg is pulled into your pelvis. Your front ribs are lifted. Back ribs are puffy, and you are advancing your chest forward so that your nipples are hanging out over your thumbs. And then you slowly squeeze those elbows to your side body, maybe touch your nose down to the floor and push back up. And let's do that 3 more times. You should feel the triceps on the backs of your arms working for this one. That straight leg is pulled into your pelvis. You are shifting your chest forward. Maybe you're putting your chin down for the last one. And then come all the way on up and release. Roll out those wrists. This is a modified chaturanga. The idea is to work those triceps on the backs of your arms. There's a lot of moving parts. The challenge is to keep your leg, the straight leg, short. The challenge is to keep your back ribs puffy. Challenge is to keep breathing. Let those elbows scrape your ribs. And we'll do this other side. It's kind of a joke because you're still working the same 2 arms that you just worked a moment ago. We're going to come to hands and knees once again. Inhale, head and tail up. This is the no-no position. You don't want to be here. As you exhale, come into this cat pose. Yes, this is what you want it to feel like, this cat pose. Left leg stretches straight back behind you. Left heel swings out wide. You're dumping out that hip pocket change, or that left hip pocket. Pulling the leg into your pelvis to lift the leg up. Not going to go very high at all. It's more about pulling the leg into your pelvis. And the leg just incidentally comes away from the floor when you do that. And then breathe into those back ribs, puff them out. Dial your hands in the direction of your pinky fingers a little bit so that your elbows will scrape your ribs. Continue to shift forward and maybe put your nose down and pick it right back up. Puffy back ribs. Going for a total of 4, perhaps on this side. Maybe number 3, maybe number 4, you can get your chin down. Got to shift even further forward to get that chin down. And pick it back up. And final time. And release. Child's pose. Breathe. Come to hands and knees. And let's put it all together. Coming to hands and knees, you might want some padding underneath your knees. The floor can be hard. I'm going to stretch that right leg. Sorry, you're going to come to hands and knees. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. And now stretch that right leg straight back behind you. And then cross midline. Right leg swings across to the left. Now tuck that right knee in behind the left. So your knees are crossed and they're on some padding. Feet are nice and wide. Front ribs and belly pull in. Hands can go wide out to the sides, and you're going to shift from side to side, giving your lower back a stretch, giving your hips a stretch, shifting side to side. Usually feels pretty good. The more you pull in the front ribs, the more you puff out your back ribs, the more you can swing side to side, and the more hip stretch you'll get. Now, as you're swinging and swaying from side to side, you might find your blocks and get ready to put those blocks underneath your butt. But you're going to sit back between your heels. And I'm going to turn real quick. We're going to look at the screen together. So, pushing back, maybe sitting on a stack of blocks or maybe sitting on blocks that are side by side. Sit on enough stuff so that you can sit with Gomukhasana, cow's go moo, cow's face pose legs. If your legs just don't do this, crisscross applesauce will do. I'm sitting on 2 blocks stacked. So don't be shy about sitting on stuff. No one's looking. Palms are forward, great big shoulder shrug up. Back and down, feeling that lovely hip stretch. Now, hopefully, I'm a mirror image of you. Whichever leg is on top, that arm shoots up into the sky. The other hand comes down towards the ground. You're going to reach up and come on over. Same rules apply. Front ribs and belly are pulled in. You can breathe into your back ribs for that lovely side stretch. Bottom hand pushes into the ground to help you flare, puff out those side ribs, those back ribs a little bit more. Front ribs and belly are pulled in. And come on up. Very nice. Let's do the other side. So whichever leg is on top, that hand's going to be down. The other hand comes on up as you tip on over. Ooh, an even deeper side stretch now because that bottom leg is really well anchored. And you breathe. Again, top palm is flat to the ground like you're dribbling a basketball. You're lengthening out through the pinky finger, maybe sweeping back through your thumb. Front ribs and belly are pulled in. You're being tickled in this position. Shove off with that bottom hand. Take this top arm diagonal across and twist. Same thing. It's real tempting to stick your chest out. No, tuck in those front ribs. Breathe into the back ribs as you twist. Looking forward, take that back arm underneath to hold onto that elbow and just continue stretching it across your chest. Shoulders are down. And you breathe. So you'll notice the leg that's on the bottom, that hip is really well anchored. If you're ever in doubt which arm should go on top, it's that arm matching the well anchored hip. And then we're going to relax. We're going to take that arm up and back behind. Give yourself a pat on the back and go for that tricep stretch. The well anchored hip will allow you to get a good stretch without feeling like you're going to fall over. Pulling in those front ribs, maybe leaning into that back body a little bit more. Breathing. Pulling in those front ribs, leaning into the back body a little bit more. Maybe you're sitting on enough stuff that you can close your eyes and really get into it. Maybe not. And release. We're going to do the other side. So you can shift forward. Remember which leg's on top. That leg's going to go behind. You might want some padding underneath those knees. I'm going to take our time switching. Coming to hands and knees. Uncross. And then recross, putting the other leg in front. Hands can go wide out to the sides, and you're just going to shift side to side. This idea of getting your pelvis to roll across the top of your thigh bones. When you are weight bearing on the long bones of your body, like your thigh bones and your arm bones, weight bearing, compressing end to end, those long bones of your body, it is said to help maintain bone mineralization. So stressing the bones with compressive end to end weight bearing exercise. It's supposed to be good for your bones. Also feels good in your hips and lower back. Okay, and now blocks go underneath your booty and you sit down between your heels and you customize that stack of blocks. You might be on 2 or 3 or 4 blocks. Sitting between your heels, if this does not work for you, crisscross applesauce will do. Shoulders are up, back, and down. We're going to take whatever arm is matching the top leg, that one into the air first, and tip on over into a side stretch. And you'll just notice how it's not as well anchored. It's just a different quality to the stretch. Front ribs are pulled in, shifting weight to the back body, sitting heavy, and then come all the way on up. We'll do the other side, which feels so much better. So whatever arm is matching the top leg, that one's going to be down. Bottom arm, leg up in the air. Side stretch. Oh yeah, bigger stretch. Front ribs and belly are pulled in. Deep back body breaths. Coming on up, taking that top arm diagonal across, coming into a twist. And breathing with an awareness for that back body. Not about sticking your chest out, it's about flaring those back ribs. And then finally putting it all together for the final pose. Whatever arm matches the bottom leg, that one's coming up, giving yourself a pat on the back, going for that cow's face pose, shoulder stretch. And again, resisting the temptation to stick out those front ribs. Tuck them in. Shift your weight back. And then release. Time flies when you're having fun. You're going to come on out of that one and make your way down to the ground. So next weekend, the UCSD classes resume, and you will be at the UCSD Zoom room for next Sunday's class. Feel free to invite your friends. Make sure you register in advance so that you can get into that class on time. And settling in this morning, just observe how you feel on the ground. Let your fingers curl around imaginary Easter eggs and shrug your shoulders down underneath your body. And shake your head no, wiggle your jaw. Maybe even yawn. Feel your front ribs fall down into your back ribs. And let your back ribs spread out on the floor. To help release that back body a little bit more, you might bring one knee, both knees into your chest, and walk your hips away from your shoulders. Feeling those back ribs on the floor, setting your feet, setting your legs down, doing whatever you want to do with your lower body. Again, gentle arms out to your sides, cradling Easter eggs in the palms of your hands.